All right, 40 days through the Bible, day 34. This was the Gospel of Luke, and in chapter 7 is this story where Jesus comes to have dinner with a Pharisee. And when he's there, this woman comes in and she falls at Jesus' feet. She starts weeping and wetting his feet with her tears, wiping his feet with her hair, and then she pours out this bottle of perfume all over his feet. And the Pharisee looks at it and he's like, surely if Jesus was a real prophet, he would know that this woman is a sinner. She's a prostitute and whatever, and he wouldn't allow her to do this. And then Jesus turns to Simon and he tells him this story. And he says, hey, there was this money lender, and there was two guys that owed him money. One guy owed him 500 denarii, the other guy owed him 50. And neither of them had the money to pay him back, so he forgave the debts of both of them. Now, which one of these guys do you think would love him more, right? And Simon goes, well, probably the dude who was forgiven the bigger amount of debt. So probably the guy that, owed 500 instead of 50. And Jesus says, okay, you've judged correctly. And he turns back to the Pharisee and he says, hey, when I came in, you didn't offer to wash my feet at all. And this woman has washed them with her tears. You didn't give me a kiss or greet me or anything like that. But this woman hasn't stopped kissing me since the moment I walked in. And at the end of it, he says, therefore I tell you, her many sins have been forgiven, as her great love has shown. But whoever has been forgiven little loves little. And the thing about this that hit me this morning is this idea that none of us have an excuse to love little because none of us have been forgiven little. And the thing is, we like to look at the externalities of the circumstance and say, okay, well, there was one guy that was forgiven 500 and there was one guy that was forgiven 50, 500 bigger than 50. So, that guy loved more. But the reality is, and Jesus even says this in the story, right? He says, neither of them had the money to pay him back. So he forgave the debts of both. And when we look at, from a Christian perspective, when we look at God forgiving the sins that we have committed, there is no difference in our ability to pay them back. We think that there's a difference because we look at it and we're like, oh, well, she's Miss Super Sinful Prostitute Woman over here, and I am Mr. Goody Two-Shoes Church Guy over here. And we feel like she has been forgiven more than we have. And it's just not true. It's just not true. We were both completely unable to pay back the debts that we owed. And so in that sense, there is absolutely no difference between the two. And so really something that just stuck out to me that I feel like, Jesus is trying to get to the point of here is no one has an excuse to love little, right? Because even if you think you've been forgiven a little and so you don't love that much, it's really not true. You were completely unable to pay the debt, and it didn't matter that it was 500 or it didn't matter that it was 50. The point was you were unable to pay it back, and you were completely forgiven of something that you were unable to get yourself out of in the first place. And so yeah, whoever has been forgiven little loves little. And just this idea that no one has an excuse to love little because there's nobody that has been forgiven little. Even if you think you have, it's not actually true. So that's all I have for this one. See you in the next one. Bye.